The Galactic Senate was quiet and peaceful as usual. Thousands of different alien species sat in wide circles of floating chairs. The room was large and bright with soft lights and a calm blue glow from the floor. Holographic planets and star maps floated above their heads. Senators discussed trade, laws, peace treaties, and resource sharing across systems. It was another normal day in the galaxy, or so they thought. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed across the chamber. The floating lights turned red and warning signs appeared in all languages. Senators looked around confused. Most had never heard the alarm before. It meant something serious had happened. Very serious. A tall green alien with 6 eyes and golden robes floated to the center of the hall. He was the High Speaker of the Senate. His voice was calm, but carried tension. He said a message had arrived from the outer colonies. Earth colony on Virex 7 had been attacked. The attackers were from the Dravic Empire, a powerful race known for their war fleets and cruel ways. They had always looked down on humans, called them soft, too emotional, too weak for real war. The Senate began to whisper. Some senators gasped, but most started laughing. Many leaned back in their chairs and shook their heads. A red-skinned alien senator from the Theran race spoke loudly. He said this was not a surprise. The humans always acted too big for their size. That now they would finally learn their place. Another alien joined him. She said humans would cry and ask for peace. She said Earth would never fight back. They were afraid of losing, too protective of life, too careful with war. Others agreed and made jokes about human culture, about how humans were always talking about peace and love and unity. But not all were laughing. In the back row, an old alien general stood up. He was tall and thin with gray skin and deep black eyes. His uniform was plain, but marked with many medals. He had fought in wars long before most in the room were born. He had seen things they only read about in old files. His voice was low and steady. "You have made a mistake," he said. The laughter stopped. The Senate went quiet. All eyes turned to him. The Theran senator asked what mistake. "The humans are not what you think," said the old general. "They smile. They talk about peace. But they remember everything. And they forgive nothing." The room fell into silence again. The general sat down. And no one said anything for a long time. Across the galaxy, on a distant moon where the Earth colony had once lived, only ruins remained. Smoke rose from broken buildings. The people were gone, killed or taken. The Dravic ships floated above like monsters made of metal. Back on Earth, there was no shouting, no anger on the screens, no news flashes, no loud promises of revenge. There was only silence. The human government did not speak to the galaxy. No message came from the Earth leader. No demand for justice. No warning to the Dravic. Only quiet. In deep space, a fleet of ships sat still. Dark, cold, waiting. Inside one of the largest ships, a group of human commanders stood around a table. They looked at a map showing the Dravic Empire. Red lights marked key locations. No one smiled. No one shouted. One commander gave short order. Engage Hammer Protocol. All across the solar system. Massive machines came to life. Hidden weapons woke up from the dark. Secret stations under Mars opened their doors. Old codes were activated. Codes not used in 100 years. On the far side of the moon, a door opened in a crater. And from the darkness, a shape rose. It was a human warship. Black. Silent. Built for one thing. War. It moved slowly at first. Then faster still. It left the moon and vanished into space. No lights, no sound, just motion. Back in the Galactic Senate, the news screens blinked again. A new alert. A human warship had left Earth space. Its course was set toward Dravic territory. The Senate room grew tense. Some senators whispered. They asked if it was going to negotiate, maybe deliver a peace message, maybe offer terms. But the old general stood again. He looked at the screen and said only one word. No. The stars above Earth remained still and quiet, but something had changed under the surface. The silence was not peace anymore, it was planning. It was control. It was the weight of something old waking up. something that had not moved in 100 years. Something built not to defend, but to erase. In a hidden bunker deep below the surface of Antarctica, the United Earth Command gathered. No applause, no clapping, no long speeches. Only eyes full of focus and hands ready to move. The room was filled with generals, scientists, commanders, and artificial minds. Every screen showed the same thing. The destroyed colony on Virex 7. The fires still burning. The life signs at 0. No survivors. One man stood at the center of the room. He wore no medals, no bright colors, just a black uniform and a cold expression. He spoke only one sentence. Hammer Protocol is now active. That single line moved the Earth. Across the planet, machines began to shift. Missile silos opened under oceans and deserts. Satellites turned and linked with secret networks. Massive stations hidden under the oceans began to rise slowly. Old weapons long thought to be scrapped powered up again. On Mars, robotic arms moved silently across the red sand. Dust blew through the air as hidden bases opened. Steel doors cracked apart, and lines of human war machines rolled out. Each one covered in armor and built for speed, destruction, and survival. On the dark side of Jupiter, a station, known only by codename Obsidian, lit up for the first time since it was built. It had no crew, only AI, only weapons, only silence. And now it was awake. Inside Earth's orbital command rings, technicians worked without sleep. They checked systems, updated code, and launched new fleets. No one questioned anything. No one asked for delay. They all knew what had happened, and they all knew what was coming. Far from the command centers, in homes and cities across Earth and the colonies, people watched their screens in silence. There were no politicians giving speeches, no songs or banners or angry shouting. Just a quiet message repeated again and again. You are safe. We are moving. You will not be forgotten. Children asked their parents what it meant. Parents did not know what to say. Some cried. Others sat with hands tightly held and eyes that never blinked. Back in space, the first warship had already crossed into Dravik territory. It was not alone. Behind it came more. Dozens. Then hundreds. All painted in black and gray. No names. No symbols. Only numbers. Each ship carried weapons not seen before. Created in silence. Tested in simulations. Never shown to the galaxy. One of the human captains sat alone in her command chair. She looked young. Her eyes were calm. She held a picture of a family from Virex 7. Then she gave her order. No mercy. No warning. No hesitation. Human drones moved ahead of the fleet. Fast and nearly invisible. They slipped past Dravik sensors. They hacked defense systems. They shut down power grids. One by one, the lights in the outer Dravik worlds began to flicker and die. The Dravik Empire did not believe it at first. They had expected threats, angry messages, maybe one or two ships to show strength. Not this. Not thousands of war machines. Not the cold and perfect silence of Earth's response. Not entire fleets moving without speaking a word. The Dravik military tried to fight back. They launched patrols. They activated defense walls. But it was too late. Human ships did not stop to talk. They did not wait for shields to rise. They moved like shadows and hit like thunder. In the first wave, 6 Dravik bases were erased. No survivors. No messages. Just smoke and fire. A young Dravik officer sent a signal to his commander. His voice was shaking. He said he had never seen weapons like these. He asked where the humans got them. Who gave them this power? The commander gave no answer. Because he had none. In the Galactic Senate, the silence returned. Screens showed live reports of the human fleet. Even the laughing senators from before now sat still. Some tried to deny it. Others wanted to call for peace talks. But it was too late for that. The old general from before stood again. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. You were warned, he said. You did not listen. Now you will see what happens when Earth is silent. And the galaxy did see. Across the stars, humanity was not speaking. It was moving, and everything in its path was falling. The Dravik Empire was proud. Their ships were strong. Their fleets were large. Their leaders were confident. They had crushed smaller planets before. They believed humans were no different. They believed wrong. At the edge of their territory, near a mining world called Zarin Prime, their ships floated in wide formation. 50 destroyers, 20 carriers, and a command cruiser sat ready. Their weapons systems were charged. Their shields were full. Their captains were sure of victory. The stars around them were calm. Nothing moved. The sensors showed no signs of enemy ships. But something was wrong. A soft beep echoed through the control room of the cruiser. A young officer looked at his screen. He called the commander. There was a signal. Very small. Almost nothing. But it was moving fast. Too fast. The commander walked to the main screen. He told his crew to zoom in. What they saw made no sense. It was a black object. No lights. No clear shape. Just a shadow moving through space. Then the signal split. 1 became 10. 10 became 100. And they were everywhere. Before the commander could speak, the shadow ship struck. A blinding flash filled the screen as one of the destroyers exploded. No warning. No countdown. Just fire. Then another ship vanished. And another. The fleet tried to respond. Tried to fire. Tried to raise shields. But the systems were already failing. Human drones had reached the ships before the battle even began. They were inside the networks. Inside the systems. Shutting everything down. One Dravik captain screamed over the comms. He begged for reinforcements. He shouted that the enemy was invisible. He never finished his sentence. The human warships appeared. Not 1 or 2, but 20, 30, more. They did not follow normal formation. They moved like predators. Fast and quiet. Each shot was exact. Each attack planned. Within 7 minutes, half the Dravik fleet was destroyed. The rest was in chaos. Ships collided. Pilots panicked. Orders were lost. In the middle of the chaos, a small human ship floated forward. It was not firing. It was not moving fast. It simply hovered in front of the command cruiser. A message blinked on the Dravik screen. One word only. Leave? The commander stared at the word. He had no idea how they had broken into his system. No idea how they knew which ship he was on. No idea why the humans gave him a choice. He did not respond. The human ship vanished, and the command cruiser exploded from the inside. Far above the battle, in a hidden observation station, other alien species were watching. The Senate had sent secret probes to monitor the human response. They wanted to study it, to learn from it, to see if Earth would back down. Now, they watched in silence as the most powerful Dravik fleet outside their home system was reduced to dust. One alien observer whispered to himself, "They are not fighting like before. They are not angry. They are not loud. They're just doing what they came to do." In another part of the galaxy, news spread quickly. Screens in spaceports, bars, and markets played the same footage. Human ships moving like shadows. Dravik ships burning. No survivors. The galaxy began to understand. This was not a warning strike. This was not a message. This was war. Back on Earth, inside a dark room beneath the United Earth Command Center, a group of old men and women sat at a round table. Each had seen wars. Each had given orders that changed history. They said nothing as the battle reports came in. No cheers. No celebration. Only quiet nods. A voice from the screen asked for the next target. One of the leaders answered, "Eliminate all military positions." Only military. A brief silence followed. Then the voice on the screen confirmed the command. The plan would continue. On the far side of the Dravik Empire, their capital world received the first real-time alert. It was short. It simply said, "Outer defense line lost." No data. No survivors. No response. Panic spread through the council. They shouted for more ships. More weapons, more shields. But deep down, they already knew. Humanity had arrived, and it was not leaving. In a quiet chamber, an old Dravik historian closed his book. He looked at a painting on the wall, a scene from their ancient war. He whispered to his student, "This is not the beginning of a war. This is the end of an age." Across space, human fleets moved with speed and silence. They did not stop to claim land. They did not stay to speak. They left only ashes, and fear, The first strike was over. The galaxy would never forget it, and humanity was just getting started. The stars were quiet again, but it was not peace. It was fear, a silence filled with questions and shadows. Worlds that once laughed at Earth now turned off their music. Senators who once joked about human emotions now sat alone in dark rooms reading battle reports and shaking hands. Across the galaxy, whispers moved faster than light. They spoke of ships made of black metal, of attacks that came without sound or warning, of an empire that had lost half its fleet in minutes. Some said it was impossible. Others said it was only the beginning. In a dark control room, floating above a neutral world, a group of alien leaders gathered. They were not friends. They were not allies. But they shared something now. Fear. One asked what the humans wanted. Another asked what would make them stop. No one had an answer. Then the lights in the room flickered. A signal forced its way into every screen and speaker. No one had time to block it. No firewall stopped it. No system ignored it. The message came at once to every corner of the galaxy, to every ship, every station, every capital, and every home with a working screen. The screen turned black. Then a human appeared. It was not a soldier, not a general, not a politician with medals. It was a woman in a dark suit, sitting in a plain chair with nothing behind her but black space. Her eyes were calm and cold. Her voice was soft but clear. She did not shout. She did not plead. She said Earth had received the message of war from the Dravic Empire. She said Earth understood that message. And now Earth was responding. She said the galaxy had made a mistake. That for too long Earth was treated as weak, as emotional, as soft. But Earth was not soft. It was patient. She said the attack on Virex 7 was not the first. It was only the last. She said Earth remembered every insult, every broken treaty, every lost life. She said Earth had never asked for power, but it would not refuse it. She ended the message with one sentence, spoken slowly without anger or hate. We are coming. Stay out of our way. The screen turned black again. No flag, no symbol, no anthem, just silence. The silence was worse than the message. In the Galactic Senate, emergency meetings began at once. The Dravic ambassador stood with trembling hands. He said the message was illegal, that Earth had no right to speak to all systems like that. But no one listened. A senator from the Morkai system stood and asked if peace talks were possible. A counselor from the Jalari worlds asked what Earth wanted in return for peace. A diplomat from the Euler Confederacy said it was time to choose sides. The room broke into shouting. Some demanded sanctions. Some asked to hide their fleets. Some wanted to send messages to Earth offering friendship. The old general sat in the back. He said nothing. His eyes stayed on the screen. He had seen this before in the past, but never like this. Meanwhile, on Earth, no parades, no music, no celebration followed the broadcast. Human cities were quiet. People watched the stars. They knew the war was not over. They knew the message was only step one. In space, the fleets moved. They passed gas giants and asteroid fields. They did not rest. They did not turn back. One human captain stood on the deck of her ship looking at the stars. She had watched the message too. She did not smile. She did not speak. She only gave the order to increase speed. The galaxy tried to respond. The Dravic Empire called for help. They begged the nearby systems to send ships, to stand with them, to stop the humans. But no one answered. Old enemies of Earth remembered broken deals. They remembered the times Earth stayed quiet when it could have crushed them. They remembered mercy, and now they feared they would not receive it again. Merchants changed their maps. They marked Earth space in red. Warning signs appeared at ports and trade routes. Travel to human space was now forbidden by many powers. But traders whispered that human goods were still moving. Better weapons, faster drives, smarter machines, made by a planet now at war, and selling nothing. On a small moon near the edge of known space, a young alien watched the message again. He had played games about humans. He had read stories about their music and kindness. Now he asked his father if the humans were monsters. His father had no answer. He only looked at the stars and whispered that they should have listened. The Dravic Emperor sat in his throne room, surrounded by guards. He had not spoken in hours. He watched the footage of the destroyed fleets again and again. He asked his war council how this had happened. No one answered. One brave advisor finally said it was not the weapons. It was the will. The humans fought without showing fear, without asking for peace, without needing help, and that made them dangerous. The emperor ordered more ships to be built. He ordered every general to prepare for full defense. But he knew it was too late. The humans were already inside their borders, and they were not slowing down. The skies above Dravic worlds turned dark without warning. Satellites failed. Communications went silent. Screens froze. Alarms screamed across every city. But no one knew what was happening until it was too late. From the edge of the system, the human fleet arrived. It did not slow. It did not speak. It moved through the stars like a black wave swallowing light. The Dravic military scrambled to respond. Fighters launched into space. Cannons locked on targets. Commanders shouted orders through broken signals. But nothing changed. The human ships did not wait. They moved fast and hit hard. One after another, Dravic stations vanished. Each explosion lit up the sky like a dying star. People ran through the streets below, watching their defenses fall from orbit. The human soldiers began landing on the surface. They came in drop pods that burned through the clouds. Each pod hit the ground with thunder. Each door opened with smoke and steel. The soldiers inside wore black armor with glowing red visors. They did not speak. They did not pause. They spread out in perfect formation like machines. But they were not machines. They were human. And they were angry. Dravic forces tried to stop them. Tanks rolled through the cities. Fighters roared above the rooftops. Troops fired from behind walls and towers. But it did not matter. The humans moved with calm purpose. Every bullet hit. Every step was measured. Every move was designed to break the enemy fast. A young Dravic officer watched from a command post as his squad was overrun. He screamed for backup. He begged for retreat. But the signal was lost before anyone could answer. Within hours, the city of Torvax fell. Within one day, 5 more cities followed. The Empire's capital world was next. Inside the royal chambers, the Dravic Emperor paced in silence. His face was pale, his crown forgotten on the floor. Around him, advisors argued. Some wanted to fight until the end. Others wanted to escape. One advisor said they should surrender. Another slapped him across the face. The Emperor looked at the screen. It showed the human ships entering orbit. He asked what they wanted. No one knew. Suddenly, every screen in the palace went black. Then a message appeared. It was the same woman from the earlier broadcast. Still in the same black suit. Still calm. Still quiet. She said, no more words. Just one file appeared beside her. It showed the colony on Virex 7. The homes destroyed. The people lost. The flames rising into space. The screen cut off. The Emperor sank to his knees. He now understood. This was not a battle. This was judgment. Back in the streets, the fighting grew louder. Dravic civilians hid inside buildings. They held their children and whispered prayers. Some reached out to the humans with white flags and empty hands. The human soldiers did not fire. They passed by without a word. Their mission was not to punish the people. It was to end the war. Inside a burning military base, a group of Dravic generals made their last stand. They locked the doors and activated the final defense systems. But the walls shook. The lights failed. And from the smoke, the humans came. No mercy. No talk. Just action. When it was over, the base was quiet. The war room burned. The maps melted. And the flags of the Empire turned to ash. Across the planet, the last pockets of resistance fell. Some Dravic soldiers dropped their weapons and knelt. Others took off their helmets and cried. The war was over, but no one could believe it. Above the ruined cities, the human ships hovered in silence. They did not leave. They did not move. They watched. They waited. In orbit, a human commander sent a message to Earth. Target neutralized, awaiting further orders. Back on Earth, the leaders sat in silence. They looked at the screen, showing the Dravik capital burning. They said nothing for a long time. Then the order was given. Do not strike again unless attacked. Hold position. Show them who we are. The fleet obeyed. On the Dravik homeworld, survivors emerged from shelters. They looked at the sky, at the ships that ended an empire in days. They asked each other what had happened. How could this be real? How could humans who once asked for peace now bring such destruction? A teacher in a broken school picked up a fallen book. It showed a picture of the galaxy with Earth marked small and far. He tore the page out. It was wrong now. Everything had changed. A child pointed at a human soldier standing near a broken wall. The soldier looked at the child, then reached into his belt and pulled out a ration bar. He gave it to the child and walked away. The war was over, but the lesson had just begun. Back in the Galactic Senate, the screens showed the fall of the Dravik Empire. No one spoke, not even the loud ones, not even the proud ones. They watched as the human fleet stood over a ruined world, not claiming it, not ruling it, just watching. One senator finally spoke. He said the galaxy would never be the same. No one argued. The empire had fallen, not with long speeches or grand battles, but with silence and precision, with calm fury, with human strength that no one believed in until it was too late. And now the galaxy believed. The war was over, but the silence still held the galaxy in its grip. No celebrations followed the fall of the Dravik Empire. No parties, no songs, no fireworks. Only quiet voices in shadowed rooms and the soft hum of orbiting warships that refused to go home. Across the stars, things began to change. Not loudly, not quickly, but like a storm rolling over the horizon without sound. In schools on distant worlds, teachers changed their lessons. They stopped calling humans emotional. They stopped laughing at their peace talk. They showed new maps, maps that now glowed with red lines around Earth space. Not warning lines for danger, but borders of respect. Children who once played pretend with alien heroes now chose human soldiers instead. They drew pictures of tall warriors in black armor, standing alone against fleets. They spoke in whispers about the ships that came from nowhere and erased the enemy in seconds. On trading stations, humans walked through markets, and no one bumped into them. No one raised their voices. No one called them soft. Aliens moved aside with quiet nods and forced smiles. They had seen the broadcasts. They had heard the screams from Dravik space. They did not want to be next. In the political halls of the Galactic Senate, new alliances began to form. Old treaties were rewritten. New laws passed in fear disguised as diplomacy. Many species now added one unspoken rule to every agreement. Do not provoke Earth. Some ambassadors tried to reach out. They sent gifts and letters. They spoke carefully and smiled often. They offered trade and information and technology. But they knew the balance had shifted. Earth no longer needed the galaxy. The galaxy now needed Earth. In a dark hall on a moon near the Senate, a secret meeting took place. Leaders from 10 systems gathered in silence. They discussed how to protect themselves, not from humans, but from their own people, from the fear that had begun to rise. One leader said if they showed fear, the humans would grow stronger. Another said if they showed strength, the humans might return. No one knew the right answer. Meanwhile, on Earth, life continued with quiet purpose. The war was never shown in full. Only parts. Only what was needed. Most people knew what happened, but no one spoke too much about it. In the streets of major cities, humans walked with heads held high. They had not fought for glory. They had not fought to conquer. They had fought because someone had tried to take what was theirs. And they had answered with silence and fire. In a museum near the center of New London, a new exhibit opened. It showed artifacts from Virex 7. Pieces of buildings, photos of families, a section of wall with names carved into it, the names of those lost. People came in silence. They stood before the wall and read the names. Some left flowers, some left medals. No one spoke. In space, the human fleets did not come home. They stayed at the edge of systems, watching, waiting. They did not threaten. They did not move, but they reminded the stars of what had happened. One alien cargo pilot passed near a human patrol ship. He said later it was like flying past a storm frozen in place. Calm, beautiful, deadly. In a broadcast that reached millions, a famous alien historian gave a speech. He said history had made a mistake. He said humans had been judged too early. They had been seen as weak because they loved, as slow because they thought before acting, as soft because they forgave. But now everyone saw the truth. The historian said humans were not dangerous because they attacked. They were dangerous because they waited, because when they moved, nothing stopped them. On a far world in the outer rim, a small rebellion was forming. They had planned to attack a human trade route. They believed Earth would not respond. They believed the war with the Dravik was just luck. Then a single drone arrived. It hovered above their base and played the same message sent to the galaxy weeks before. The voice of a human woman. We are coming. Stay out of our way. The rebels disbanded within hours. Inside the remains of the Dravik Palace, a human relief team moved through rubble. They gave food to children. They helped rebuild homes. They repaired water systems. They planted seeds. A young Dravik girl looked up at a human medic and asked why they were helping. The medic knelt down and said, because we can. Because we must. That story spread faster than any battle report. On a quiet night under alien skies, an elder sat with his family and told them what he had seen. He said the stars used to be simple. Trade and talk. Peace and power. But now they had changed. Now there was a shadow. Not a dark one, but a powerful one. He said humans were not gods. Not devils. Not monsters. Just people. People who remembered. People who waited. People who acted. And now the galaxy would remember them too. The stars no longer looked the same. They still burned bright. They still danced across the void. But their meaning had changed. Every shining point now held a new story. A new rule. A new fear. The war had ended. The Dravik Empire had fallen. But Earth had not celebrated. No flags were raised. No leaders shouted. No cities threw parades. Humanity had returned to silence. But their ships had not returned. Across the galaxy, fleets of black metal still hovered. They did not attack. They did not speak. They only watched. On trade routes and borderlines. In orbit above old enemies. Near moons that once held secret weapons. Human ships stayed like statues carved from war. The Galactic Senate finally called for a full assembly. Every system sent a representative. None dared to refuse. None wanted to be left out. Everyone knew what this meeting was about. Inside the chamber, the air was cold. Screens floated in silence. Images of destroyed Dravik worlds moved in slow circles. Data scrolled beneath them. Lost fleets, broken cities, shattered systems. At the center of the room, the High Speaker stood alone. He asked one question. What do we do now? No one answered. Some looked away. Some looked down. Others stared at the empty chair marked for the human ambassador. That chair had never been filled. Not during war. Not during peace talks. Not even now. Then, without warning, the lights dimmed. A single signal pushed through every firewall. Every screen blinked and changed. The face of the human woman appeared again. Still calm. Still in black. Still alone. She did not introduce herself. She did not smile. She only spoke. She said Earth would not lead the galaxy. Earth would not claim land. Earth would not take revenge. Earth would only stand ready. She said peace was still the goal. But peace had a price. And the galaxy had now seen what that price looked like when it was ignored. She said Earth would accept a seat at the Galactic Council. Not as a ruler. Not as a threat. But as a promise. She said Earth would not speak often. But when it did, everyone would listen. The screen went black. No music played. No anthem followed. Just the echo of her words inside every mind. The vote was held within the hour. No one voted against. A few abstained. Most voted yes. The human seat was placed at the highest point of the council. Not for honor, but so all could see it clearly. And still the chair remained empty. On distant worlds, governments rewrote policies. New training programs began to study human war tactics. Security forces changed codes and protocols. Even languages began to borrow human phrases. Especially one, Hammer Protocol. On a cold moon, near the edge of known space, a monument was built. not by humans, but by the Yulon. Once enemies, now respectful. The monument showed a human soldier standing tall. Behind him, stars shaped like shields. Below him, the ground cracked like broken chains. A line was carved into the stone. We thought they were weak. We were wrong. Back on Earth, things remained quiet. Children went to school. Factories worked. Gardens bloomed. People did not act like heroes. They did not wear medals. They only carried memories. In a small village once hit by a Dravik raid, a tree grew in the center square. It had been planted after the war. Its leaves were silver, its roots deep. Each morning, one old man sat beside it and looked at the sky. He had no rank, no power, but he had a voice. When children asked what the war had taught him, he always said the same thing. The stars are beautiful, but never trust a quiet planet with a broken heart. In orbit, human warships continued their patrols. They trained, they watched, they never fired again. Not because the weapons were gone, but because they did not need to. The galaxy had changed. No one attacked colonies now. No one tested borders. No one launched raids. Old rivalries went cold. New treaties were signed. Peace grew not from love, but from fear. A stable peace. A quiet peace. In time, stories of the war faded, but not completely. In libraries and homes. In training rooms and classrooms. The words remained. The day Earth moved. The day the galaxy watched. The day silence became strength. A Dravik child once asked his teacher why his people had lost. The teacher did not speak of weapons or numbers. He said, "We lost because we did not listen. We thought noise meant power, but we forgot the silence between storms. That silence now belonged to Earth. And as long as it did, the galaxy would tremble, not from war, but from a memory of what happens when humanity stops waiting." The new galactic order was not written in ink, not signed by hand, not shouted in halls. It was written in fire, signed in silence, and remembered in fear. And above it all, watching the stars, sitting in a chair that no one dared fill, was the shadow of Earth.